scientists, it's Jessica Power from Kansas City Public Schools, one of the science curriculum coordinators. I'm so glad we're back this week and we're going to be talking more about plants. Scientists, if you remember last week, I unpotted my Gerber daisy and we got an opportunity to look at the different parts that a plant has. With our Gerber daisy, we got to look at the stem, the leaves, the petals, the seeds, and the roots. Do you remember that root ball I picked up, how big those roots were? Remember, the bigger the plant, the bigger the roots. Well, scientists, it's important to know that not only do plants have different parts, and that those parts have special functions, but scientists, it's really important that we know that plants get materials or things from outside the plant to help that plant grow. So scientists, I want to review the plant parts first, and I actually have a story for you that we're going to read today about how plants get materials or the things they need from around them in order to grow. So last week, scientists, I had this poster up, and we talked about the parts of different plants. And we said that the seeds, we'll start at the top of the plant, the seeds, those are going to grow new plants. And so those seeds come off the plant and they get scattered. And next week, scientists, we're going to read a book about how those seeds can get scattered, whether it's by animals, whether it's by plant pollination from different insects like honeybees, or whether the wind takes those seeds and they go off into the distance. So seeds help us make new plants. Then we have the flower. And those flowers are really so that the colors, the bright colors of the flower, attract those insects and those different animals to the flower to help spread those seeds. But we're going to focus on that a lot next week, scientists. Now, we have a stem. So all plants have a stem. This plant, you'll see the leaves are coming off the stem. If you remember last week, the Gerber daisy, those leaves came from the base of the plant. So they didn't necessarily come from the stem where the flower is. The stem is going to support the plant, so it allows the plant to stand up tall. And it also is going to move water from the roots of the plant all the way up to the different parts, to the leaves, to the petals, etc. Our leaves are going to help the plant make their food. And that's all what the book we're going to read today is about, scientists. It's about how do plants make their food. Now, we as humans, we eat, right? In order to get energy and to get food. We eat hamburgers or salads or maybe sometimes a candy bar or a cupcake, right? But we eat different food and that's how we get energy. Plants don't have mouths. They don't just eat food like we do. So their leaves are really, really important to how a plant is able to grow and get energy. And then finally we have the roots. And the roots keep that plant in the ground, right? They keep it anchored, keep it stuck in the ground. And the other thing that the roots are going to do is they absorb water and nutrients. So our roots allow the plant to be able to soak up and absorb water that then goes up to the stem, the leaves, and everywhere else. Now, scientists, if you think about it, most of the time, majority of the time, we plant flowers in the summer. And I want you to think about why we may plant flowers in the summer. Why do you think we plant flowers in the summer? It is warm in the summer, right? We can give water to the plants. And another reason that we plant flowers in the summer is because that's when we have the most sunlight. So if you think about during the summertime, the sun is out longer during the day than it is in the winter or spring or summer. Now, scientists, plants, in order to grow, they have to make their own food. And they make their own food by using materials or things around them, like water, like sunlight. And they make this thing called glucose. Glucose is a type of sugar. And that sugar is what helps the plant to have energy and allows the plants to grow big, right? Remember my Gerber daisy from last week? I told you guys that Gerber daisy started out really, really small. And by the end of the summer, it had grown and to be really big. Well, the combination of sunlight, water, and then the air around the plant the plant absorbs the air. So scientists, we're going to read a book today called How Do Plants Grow? And it is by G.A. Seeley. And so we're going to follow this boy named Kelvin and his dad, and we're going to learn about how plants grow. So how do plants take the materials or the things from the air, water, and sun? And how does the plant turn that into food or glucose, which is sugar that the plant needs? Now, just like you and I, we also need energy, right? And so glucose is how the plants get their energy. So let's take a look. How Do Plants Grow by G.A. Seeley. One day, Calvin and Dad were taking a walk. They were looking at the trees and flowers in the park. When Calvin said, "Dad, how do trees grow?" Dad replied, "Do you really want to know?" Well, trees need food like me and you, but they can make their own, which is a neat thing to do. First, they take some rays from Mr. Sun, so for them daytime is lots of fun. Then comes the rain and water comes from the sky. It enters their roots and travels up high. To the leaves which take in air, then Mrs. Tree mixes all these things with great care. So we have the sun, we have the water and the rain, and we have the air. Out comes sugar, which is very sweet, which is found in all the fruits we eat. So plants make sugar as their food, which then puts birds and bees in a happy mood. For plants like to share their food with others, just like you share your toys with your brother. Plants make food through photosynthesis, this big word you cannot miss. So here, his dad's kind of pointing out how that plant makes its food to grow. It takes sunlight, it takes water and air, and that gives the plant the sugar or the glucose that it needs to grow and survive. So next time someone asks, how do plants eat? Give them an apple that tastes so sweet. And then tell them, making sugar is the way plants make food to grow, through photosynthesis, don't you know? Kelvin said, plants take in water, air, and light, and mix till it's just about right. Dad said, right, and that is the way trees get taller. So when you stand next to them, you look smaller. Calvin said, thank you, Dad. Now I know how plants are able to grow. So scientists, not only do plants have different parts that help them grow and survive, but what those parts do are super important. So as we learned with Kelvin and his dad, plants need sunlight, they need air, and they need water to grow. So those plants are going to take in water from the roots, they're going to take in air and sunlight through the leaves, and then the combination of those three things are going to help the plant to make its own food in order for that plant to grow and become bigger and healthier. So scientists, if you get an opportunity, you can grow your own plants. You can take a look at what happens if you give your plants maybe a little bit more sunlight or a little less sunlight. What happens if you give your plants less water or more water. But you can see how plants grow bigger, healthier, just by getting the right nutrients. Just like you, just like me. We also need the right nutrients to grow big and strong. So plants do the same as well. Scientists, next week we're going to talk about how different animals and how different parts of nature, like the wind, are going to move around different seeds from plants so that we can grow new plants. We call that seed dispersal. So how do we get seeds from one plant and how do we scatter them throughout either a forest or an area to grow new plants naturally without humans having to do it? I'll see you back here next time, scientists. Have a great week. Hey scientists, it's Jessica Power, one of the science curriculum coordinators from Kansas City Public Schools. Scientists, last week we spent time learning about day and night. We learned about what causes us to have daylight outside and what causes us to have nighttime or when it's dark outside. We learned about this thing called the Earth's axis, and we learned that the sun or the Earth spins on the Earth's axis, and that axis runs from the North Pole to the South Pole. Let's click the globe just to review. So here I have my globe. Remember, we have the equator that runs, that's that red line, runs around the horizontal center of the Earth. And we have our axis, that's the imaginary line that runs through the North Pole, through the South Pole, the center of the Earth. Now we also learned last week, I talked to you guys about why this red line that runs this equator that runs through the center of the Earth is diagonal. If I asked you to draw a line that ran through the center of a sphere, you probably would draw your line that looks like this, so that it runs on a horizontal, straight across line. But that's not how the Earth sits as it rotates and revolves around the sun, which we'll talk about today. The Earth sits on a tilt, which literally means the Earth is tilted. So instead of the equator running straight across like it does here, the equator still runs straight across, but because the Earth is tilted, it looks like it actually runs diagonal. Fun fact. So last week we talked day and night, and we said that the day and night is caused by the Earth spinning on its axis, right? So we talked about how spinning is what gives us day and night. When we're facing the sun, we're seeing the day. When we're not facing the sun, we're seeing the night. Well, scientists, there's another word we're going to introduce today. It's not rotate, but it does have to do with moving. The word we're going to talk about today is revolve. Have you ever heard of the word revolve or revolution? There's a couple different definitions of revolution. Well, scientists, the definition that we're going to use today for revolve or revolution is to move around an object. So this is where things start to get a little confusing, scientists. And a lot of people sometimes confuse day and night with why we have seasons. In fact, it is a common misconception. Misconception is something that people believe that actually is wrong. It's a common misconception of why people think we have seasons. Most people think that, a lot of people think that we have seasons because the Earth either gets farther away from the sun, or in the summer it's really, really close to the sun. But scientists, that's not true. The reason we have seasons is because of the Earth's tilt and how it revolves or moves around the sun. So scientists, today I'm going to demonstrate for you, I'm going to show you how the Earth moves around the sun with the tilt, with the rotation that it has for day and night, to show you how we have seasons. But first, let's talk about what causes seasons and things like that. So as you may have noticed, it's fall right now. The leaves are starting to change. They're going from green, which we have in the summer, to more of a yellow, to an orange, to a red, eventually brown, where they'll fall off the trees. And in the wintertime, those trees go dormant. Dormant just means that there's not a lot of water pumping through or flowing through the trees to provide the leaves with the water it needs. So the trees lose the leaves, and then the trees kind of just store that water until springtime. Fun fact. We're not talking about trees. Get it together. we are talking about the earth and how we have seasons. So you also may notice that right now during fall, have you noticed that the day seems to be getting shorter? Did I trick you there? I said day. Remember, the day is 24 hours. The amount of daylight starts to get shorter. So instead, in the summertime, think like July. When you wake up, the sun's up. When you go to bed, the sun may still be up. We have almost 12 to 14 hours of sunlight during the summer. Now during the winter time, it's dark when we get up and it's dark when we go to bed. And we only get around 8 to 10 hours of sunlight during the day. That's a big difference. And so scientists, you may notice that right now, the daylight seems to be getting shorter and shorter and shorter. In fact, yesterday, the sun rose around 7:05 and the sun set around 7:10 p.m. So we're only getting about 12 hours of sunlight right now, and that's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter, especially as we move into November and then as we get into December. Okay, let's go back to seasons. So I drew up a picture for us scientists to refer back to today. So let's take a look at that picture. So cause of seasons. So the sun sits in the center of our solar system, right? So we have the sun, and then all the planets in our solar system revolve around the sun. So they move around it, okay? Now, if you look at this picture really carefully, you'll notice that I've drawn in the axis on all four Earths. No, there are not four Earths circling the sun at the same time, but this is to show you a time lapse or what the Earth looks like, where it's at during different times of the year. So, I'm going to start with this Earth on the right. So we have the axis that runs through. You'll notice the axis is running diagonal. And Kansas City is actually about right here. Okay? So it's sitting on the left half of the axis. Keep that in your brain as we go through this. Kansas City is on the left half of the axis. Okay? So on this particular globe right here, if Kansas City is on the left half of the axis, so here's the axis, left half, you'll notice it's getting direct sun. It's getting lots and lots of sunlight. And it's getting lots and lots of sunlight for many hours of the day. So scientists, when we see the Earth, and we see where we're at here in Kansas City, and getting that direct sunlight, the sun is shining on the whole half of the axis to the left, that is summertime for us. We're getting the most possible direct sunlight we can for the longest amount of time possible. Now, yes, the Earth is spinning, so during this time we're also getting day and night. But if you notice, if we're up here, that's also what's causing our days to be longer because we're able to get more sunlight and our nights to be a little bit shorter. Now scientists, as the Earth revolves and it starts to move, and it makes it about 1/4 of the way through its revolution, you'll notice our axis is tilted once again, and we're facing away from the sunlight, right? So we're starting to get less sunlight as the Earth revolves. Now as it makes its way all the way over, now we're getting even less sunlight because the left half of the axis is fully pointing away from the sun. Remember in the summertime we were getting the full sunshine? Now we're just really getting indirect. But when the Earth spins, we're having shorter days and longer nights because of the amount of sunlight that we're able to get from the sun. And then as it completes its last part of the rotation, or revolution, scientists, we start to get more sunlight back, okay? So it starts to be longer days, shorter nights, and finally we get back to summer. So over here I gave kind of our definition of why we have seasons, or the cause of seasons. It says as Earth revolves around the sun, the tilt of the Earth's axis causes uneven warming of the Earth, which gives us seasons. Okay? Now, I realize that looking at a picture is one way to look at it, but I thought I would replicate what this actually looks like. So I got a lamp, and I've taken the lampshade off, so it's just the light. And then I'm gonna turn it on. Nice bright light. And scientists, what do you think this represents if we're talking about the sun and earth? We're talking about, this is the sun. Awesome. So here's our earth. Okay? All right. So I'm going to have us pay attention to Kansas City. Okay? And right now, here's our tilt. So north, south. Earth is spinning. And now we're going to start Earth's revolution. Now you will be able to see the amount of sunlight or light bulb light that's hitting the sun each time, or hitting the earth each time. So as I start to move, now you'll notice here that the axis, right, here's the North Pole, goes straight through, here's the South Pole. The North America, this half of the earth is directly facing the light bulb, directly facing it. So we're having more, or the most, amount of sunlight during our days. Scientists, which season do you think this is? Is this summer, spring, fall, winter? Which season do you think is happening? We have the side where Kansas City, so the half of the globe where Kansas City is at, is getting the most sunlight. Which season do you think we're experiencing? You said summer, that's right. We're getting the most amount of sunlight, the longest amount, the most direct, okay? So it's gonna be the warmest during this time. Now when we keep moving, now we start to get a little bit less sunlight, okay? So you start to see that there's a little bit less sunlight occurring. So we go from summer into fall. Now as the earth continues to revolve, now, where are we at? There we go. Now, we are getting the least amount of sunlight. And I want to show you what that means, scientists. So right here is the United States, where we live, okay? We live in Kansas City, which is about right here. Now you will notice that as the sun shines onto the earth, because of the Earth's axis, right, North Pole, South Pole, when I move the United States into the sun, notice it's not shining directly on it, right? It's shining more at the equator. So even though it is still getting sunlight, it's still not getting very much, right? And now we go into nighttime, back to daytime. So you see, even though it's getting sunlight, it's not getting very much during the course of the day. Now as we keep going with our revolution, now we start to get a little bit more sunlight. So we've gone from winter and now we're into spring. So scientists, here's the US, and you'll notice that as the sun is spinning, we start to get a few more hours of daylight. Sun rises, sunny, sunset occurs, and that revolution continues. Now we're back over to summer, where we're getting direct sunlight. Okay? I'm gonna turn off this light because it's super bright. So scientists, for the Earth to make one full revolution, right? For it to make one full move around the sun, that takes about 365 days, which we know as 1 year. Now it's actually about 364.25, and that's why we have a leap year every few years. So, to recap, the earth revolves around the sun, and because of the earth's tilt, that's what gives us our seasons. Because of this earth's tilt, we have an unequal amount of sunlight hitting the earth at different times. And that unequal amount of sunlight changes our amount of daylight that we have every day. Meaning that some parts of the year we might have 10 hours of sunlight, and some parts of the year we may have 14 hours of daylight. So scientists, something that's really cool that you can do at home right now, especially since we're in fall and we're really transitioning from longer days to shorter days, is to track the hours, when the sun rises and sun sets every day. Now you can do this in a variety of ways. If you have an iPhone, you could go on your iPhone and look at the weather app and it will tell you sunrise and sunset. You could go on your device, so your iPad or your Chromebook, whatever you have at home that has internet. You could Google Kansas City sunrise, sunset for today, and it will tell you. And each day you can track that. And what you can also do is you can find the amount of sunlight. So you can take the difference between the sunrise and sunset and find out how many hours of sunlight we actually had. And if you don't want to do the math, there's lots of websites that have already done it for you. But what you can do, scientists, is you can fill out just a data table. Sunrise, sunset, amount of daylight. And you can fill that in, and for a couple weeks, maybe 2 weeks, maybe you want to do this for a whole month, maybe you want to go all the way to Thanksgiving, it's up to you. You can track sunrise and sunset, and you can start to see a pattern. That's right. There is always a pattern. Every fall, the amount of daylight we see gets shorter. In the wintertime, we see the shortest amount of daylight. In the spring, the amount of daylight we have starts to get more or greater. And in the summertime, we have the most amount of daylight. But it's one thing to hear about those patterns, and it's another thing to actually track those patterns and see it for yourself. So scientists, I challenge you this week. Record the sunrise and sunset. Do that for a couple weeks and see if you can determine the pattern. See if you can actually see the difference between the amount of daylight between 1 week and the next. So scientists, to recap, the reason that we have seasons is because of Earth's tilt. Remember, Earth is a sphere and the equator goes around the Earth, but the equator looks like it's diagonal because of the Earth's tilt. Now because of the Earth's tilt, we get uneven warming as it revolves around the sun, and that's what causes the seasons. If you remember at the beginning of this video, I talked about how a lot of people have misconceptions about seasons. But scientists, you now know why we have seasons. So go share it with your friends, share it with your parents. And if you hear someone try to tell you something crazy like, we have different seasons because during the summer, the Earth is like super close to the sun, and in the winter, it's super far away, help me out and let them know how we actually have seasons. I'll see you next week, scientists. Have a great week.
Kindergarten is great at Kansas City Public Schools.
I know they have really good teachers. I know this is a great school.
They teach them stuff that I thought my kids would never be able to know at the age of 5.
Since deciding to send our kiddos to a neighborhood school, we've become even more of a part of our community.
Now is the time to enroll your future kindergartner for the new school year. Visit enrollkc.org today.
Hi, I'm Erica Mamian, iSpark STEM Coordinator with Kansas City Public Schools, and this is STEM for grades 1 through 3rd grade. Today we are going to develop plans that describe a program's sequence of events. It will capture our goals and our expected outcomes. So what you're going to need today is your iPad or your Android tablet, and it will need Scratch Junior as the app. So we're going to use Scratch Junior in order to animate a character. So for now, get a couple of pieces of paper and maybe you can scratch down our instructions so that you can replicate that later. So from this screen, we're going to click Home and we're going to start a new project, by clicking the plus. Once you click the plus, we're able to change our character because we're going to do runtime Rosie, and Rosie's a dog, so we're going to get rid of the cat so that we can pull in our dog. So I'm going to select the cat, press it down till it jiggles, and click the X, and that will make the cat disappear, and we can choose our next character. I'm going to scroll down till I find the dog, and that way I can select them. When I'm ready, I pick the dog and check mark. That'll put our dog in the center of the stage. The next part of our storyline is we need to put the dog in the right spot. So where would we like Rosie to play today? I think Rosie should play in the park. So let's see if we can find a park. Let's go to our backgrounds and select the stage that we would prefer. I'm scrolling down and I happen to see a nice fall scene that would make a great park for Rosie to play. I select it and then I click the check mark. There's Rosie. She's in the park. She's ready to play. Let's pull down our blocks so that we can get Rosie started. We're going to start with our control blocks. Those get our program started. They're yellow. I want our program to start when we click the green flag. So I'm going to drag that one down. Next, we need Rosie to move. So what kind of movements did she need to do? I remember that when she was able to go, she went forward 2 spaces. So I'm going to pull down the block that's going to tell us that she can move forward 2 spaces. I'm going to change our number to 2. And then I noticed that when Rosie saw the mud puddle, she had to hop over it. So I'm going to pick our hop block. I'm going to let Rosie hop 2 times. So first, when I click the green flag, she's going to go forward 2 spaces and then hop 2 times. And then she can jump over the mud puddle. Next, I remember that, she went forward 2 spaces again. So there is my forward space. I'm going to switch that number from a 1 to a 2. And then, let's see, when she went forward, I remember, she got to pick up the bone. That's right, she got to pick up the bone. So when she saw that bone, she was so excited, she hopped 2 times. So we need to pull that hop block down. And it's already set for 2. But you know what? I noticed that we have a repeater. We have click the green flag, which that stays. But I noticed that she goes forward 2 spaces, hops 2 times, goes forward 2 spaces, hops 2 times. I remember that's called, that's a loop. Let's grab the loop block so that we can put that in there, and then we'd only have to say it 1 time. That's our orange blocks. It's in our control center. So if I pull that down, I'm able to put in the blocks that we want, and we want that sequence to go 2 times. So I'm going to change the 4 to a 2. After we change it, I'm able to put my blocks inside so that we can have that program go 2 times. Before we do that, let's check it out and see what that looks like. I'm going to click the green flag right on this. There she goes. She went forward 2 times and hopped, and then went forward 2 times more and hopped again. But I bet we could do the same thing if we put that in our repeater block. So I'm going to take those 2 blocks, put them in our repeater, take the other ones and throw them away, connect them, and let's try the sequence again. Click the green flag. It worked! She did the same program. You are able to do that too. Put your repeater block inside your other blocks so that he can go. And then you'll be on your way with more space to program. So she's at the tree. We don't want her to bump into the tree. So what could we do? I bet we could change her direction. Should we have her turn to the left or turn to the right? Let's see. When we get back to our motion blocks, we could try it out and see how that works. I'm going to pick that she can turn to the left. How about a rotation of 2 times? Let's try out our program. We're going to click the green flag. She turned. She did not run into the tree. You keep trying to replicate your animation of your character and let us know what you come up with. That's it. Hello, this is Erica Mavian, iSpark STEM Coordinator with Kansas City Public Schools, and this is STEM for grades 1st through 3rd. Today we're going to develop plans that describe a program's sequence of events, their goals, and the expected outcomes. Your students are going to be able to build knowledge and skills that enable them to program on a device. And throughout these programs and activities, they'll have a project that they can explore how math and animation are combined to make directional words come alive for their characters. So, developing plans and programs for their outcomes. How will that look for our program? Well, we're going to first select a background. Our background is going to be based on our runtime Rosie. Rosie's a dog, and we're going to have her programmed to move around in our background. Where should Rosie play today? What are some ideas that come to mind? We're going to select one later when we start to make our program. Next, we're going to select our character, and there's Rosie. She's ready to play. And finally, this is the challenge. Here's our design plan. What will Rosie do today? First, we need to make sure that Rosie travels 2 spaces to the left. Second, if she sees a mud puddle, she's going to jump up and down 2 times. And third, if she sees a bone, she gets to eat it. But before she does, she's going to jump up and down 2 times. So that's our plan. Rosie's going to go forward 2 spaces. If she sees a mud puddle, she doesn't want to get dirty. She's going to jump over it, but she jumps twice. And third, if she sees a bone, she gets to eat it, and she's so excited, she hops 2 times. That's our plan. 1, 2, and 3. So I am thinking that we are ready to get started with our program and have Rosie do all the fun things that she can think of. I have an opportunity for you to replicate this at home. You're going to need a teddy bear, a small one possibly, 2 pieces of paper of different colors. I've chosen red and blue. And then you are going to need some markers so that you can decide on what direction she needs to go in by making some arrows or maybe writing your words. And finally, you may want to get a partner to videotape you so that you could see your Rosie animation in action. Take a few seconds to get your supplies ready, and you could do this along with me.
2.
Hi, we're ready to plan our design with Rosie. I have Rosie here, and let's go over our design plan. First, we're going to have Rosie travel 2 spaces. If she sees the mud puddle, she's going to hop 2 times over the mud puddle. Second, if she sees a bone, she's going to hop 2 times because she's so excited and pick up the bone. Let's see how Rosie goes. The first part of our program is when we press play.
Okay, let's that's all right.
That's too many P's together.
Okay, here we go. From that last part. Okay, here we go. 3, 2.
We're ready to program Rosie. It's going to start when we press play. When we press play, we are going to initiate our animation of our character. It's going to start here with Rosie by the fire hydrant. She's ready to move. Our pattern today involves a blue square and red square. When I considered my pattern, I thought, how could we make sure that Rosie moved 2 spaces? So we're going to start with our blue square. She's going to move 2 spaces, so I need 1 red, 2 red. Do you remember what she does after she moves the first 2 spaces? Yes, you're right. She finds the mud puddle. Rosie's so excited about jumping over the mud puddle, she jumps 2 times. Yes, she does. Right over that mud puddle. And that's our first blue space. So, let's review. First, she went 1 blue space, followed by 1 red space, and a second red space. And that led her to the mud puddle. When she sees the mud puddle, she's going to hop 1 time, 2 times, and then she's ready to move on. So let's think, what was next? She needs to get to the bone. Have we gotten to the bone? Not yet. How will your program continue? She's going to hop 2 times. Here's our first red space and our second red space. And what is she going to meet now? Our pattern goes blue, red, red, blue, red, red. Yes, you're right. We're ready for that blue space. What's going to be at the blue space? Do you remember? Yes, Rosie finds the bone. She's so excited, she hops 2 times. And that completes our pattern. Let's think about that. Blue, red, red, blue, red, red. What was her actions? I remember she walked 2 times, then she hopped 2 times, then she walked 2 times, then she hopped 2 times. That is our repeating loop. When you get ready to program your pattern in your design process of your Scratch Junior program, remember to replicate that. Have you decided what your background will be? Where are you going to have Rosie play today? I'm going to have Rosie play in the park. I'm going to pick a fall park so that she can explore all.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Jones again. As I told you last time we spoke, we're going to be talking about how we can go from a single cell to a large organism like a blue whale. Now, as always, we always go back to our standards. Now, here's the thing. The last time we met, we were here talking about the middle school portion of this, meaning how cells have various parts that help them carry on all of the characteristics of life. Now we're going to move to this next part that talks about the hierarchical organization. Basically, how is it that you go from a single cell to a multicellular organism? Now, let's talk about hierarchy, especially when we're talking about cells. So, about to date myself, but I used to play video games, heavy back in the day, but not like these. When we started getting fighting games, oh man, I guess I was like in college. And I remember seeing like Mortal Kombat. And I was like, wow, you got a video game that looks like a person? Lovely. It was like 75 cents a game. And back when, most video games cost a quarter, big money. Anyway, the point is, you don't just go from just the lower level, which, like little peons, to the boss. There's like a path that you have to take. So for example, you got your little foot soldiers, easy kills, ain't no biggie. Then you got the ones that are a little bit more advanced, but still no problem. Then you get your lieutenants. Once you start hitting lieutenants, that's when you like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. From your lieutenants, then you hit your captains. And then from your captain, chairman. Same thing. When you look at cells just don't jump from a single cell to a blue whale. There's a gradation, there's a stridation, there is a process by which you go more complex, more complex, more complex. So we're going to talk about that today. Now, again, cells are the smallest unit of life. And why are they the smallest unit of life? Because they carry on all of the functions of or characteristics of living things. Meaning, they have organization, they grow and develop, they process energy, they respond to stimuli or a change in the environment. They carry on regulation or homeostasis. they reproduce, and they're able to adapt. Now, let's talk about this. You have a single cell. How do you go from a cell to tissues? Well, here's the deal. A tissue is just a group of cells that have adapted to work together. All right? It's like this. Before Jordan got Scotty, and really before he got Horace Grant, he was a great basketball player. He wasn't winning, any championships. He needed a team around him. And what you find is that you'll have some cells that are very good by themselves, but they need to have a group of cells to be able to carry on a higher function. Those are called tissues. And we have 4 main types of tissues. All right? We have connective tissue, epithelial, muscle, and nervous. So let's talk about these each for a second. Connective tissue. Think about support. Okay? And here's what I mean about support. Back in the day, there used to be a show called In Living Color. Jamie Foxx was on the show. He had a character called Wanda. And one thing that Wanda was saying, and one thing that Wanda's catchphrase was, is, I got you. I got you. You need gas? I got you. You need money? I got you. You need some oxygen? I got you. You need to protect your lungs? I got you. And that's kind of what connective tissues do. They're your support. That I got you. Now, another type is epithelial. Now, think of epithelial more like protection. Skin. Another show, Martin. Character, Otis. Otis Supreme. Rich woman lover and a poor woman dream. Otis. He provides protection. He keeps things covered. You know what I'm saying? Now, when you get to muscular tissue, think about movement. And again, since we're in the 90s, didn't nobody move more than a hammer. Don't hurt them. Now, last but not least, nervous tissue. And when you think about nervous tissue, you think about thinking and feeling. Yeah, did I do that? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Now, we have tissues. How do we go from tissues to organs? Well, what is an organ? Well, think of an organ as just a group of tissues that, again, have gone through some kind of adaptation, and now they work together to do a specific task. Okay? I would say think of tissues like you would think of offense and defense on a team. Yeah, the offense does the scoring, the defense does the defending, but if you want to win championships, you got to be able to do both. There's plenty of teams, high-powered offense, but can't stop a flea. They ain't gonna win games. So when you're looking at organs as they relate to tissues, here are some examples. First of all, we look at connective tissues, and there's not very many organs that fall under this. Because a lot of people say, oh, blood. Well, blood's technically a tissue fluid kind of deal. But if you look at, like, joints, there's cartilage in joints. The purpose of the cartilage is to reduce the friction in the joints to help for movement. So you find that sometimes connective tissues help something else do its job. All right? In addition to that, your rib cage, that's protecting some vital organs. Those being your lungs, which help you take in oxygen, and then your heart, which pumps the blood around. Again, specific job, can't just be done by one, but it's a tissue system, all right? Because bones have to grow. That means you have to have different parts of the bone that do different things. Let's go to the next one. Epithelial, remember, skin, all right? But besides skin, you find that your veins also are made up of epithelial tissue. And what do the veins do? Well, they allow the blood to travel to different parts of your body. They also allow us to have what's called a closed circulatory system instead of open circulatory system. Now, you may say, oh, wait. Open, closed, what are you talking about? Step on a bug. What happens? Crunch. That bad boy just immediately liquefies. Open circulatory system. God rest her soul, but my grandmother, she was a very stout woman. And I remember one time we were in the house and she was cooking in the kitchen, and I was like, "Oh, grandmother, there's a mouse." She said, "Wait, Phil." Bam! She just stepped on it barefoot. I was like, "Wow, you the most roguish woman I ever met. Just no problem." Now, when she picked the feather up, it wasn't like, you had just like a red splat. Nah, the mouse was dead. But the point is, all of its organs, all of its blood, it was still on the inside. You didn't have to see it. Unlike stepping on, like, again, a bug. Okay? Now, skin, I already talked about that. Here's the thing about skin. If you notice, the top layer, the cells are completely different than the bottom. Here's why. One side is for protection. The other side is for growth. The side that's for the growth is the side close to the blood, because again, you're going to be losing this. Okay? Think of it like this. Spending money, making money. Right. You spend money all the time. You may not know you're spending it, but you are. Which means you have to be making money all the time. That's hard. And then the last one is your small intestines. And again, the job of the small intestines, one, is to move food along, but two, to take those little particles and actually allow you to absorb them. That's the job. Right? Now, muscle tissue. Now, we already talked about movement, right? But let's talk about specific types of movement. Because everybody thinks, oh, skeletal muscles. Yeah. But understand that your stomach, that's a muscle. There's muscles associated with it because, you have to, like, move that food, those particles around. Everybody knows about the heart. Yeah. You don't pump blood, you're not going to live long. And then you got your biceps, your triceps, deltoids, shot. Now, nervous tissue. So when you talk about nervous tissue, again, it's kind of like connective tissue, where it's like one of these things that you don't really always see. And everybody thinks about the brain, and but you think about the brain and you think about the mass of a brain, and you're like, well, is the brain a muscle? Not really. One that I want to bring your attention to is the spinal cord. Okay? Because everybody thinks about their back and they think about, oh, I broke my back, or I hurt my back. But what's causing the pain most likely is that you have done something to your spinal cord. You ever heard somebody say, oh, I pinched a nerve? Yeah, that's the nerve that they're talking about. And it's not like one big nerve. It's a group of nerve cells. But your spinal cord is very, very important because that's how you process information. Meaning, if something happens to your spinal cord, not only don't you move, but a lot of times you don't feel things, which is one reason why if you ever see a movie and somebody's paralyzed, the first thing they say is, I can't feel my legs. That's why they can't feel their legs. Something happened to their spinal cord. Okay? Now, we have organ. Now we're going a little higher. Organ system. Now here's the thing. If cells work together to give you tissues, tissues work together to give you organs, organs working together gives you an organ system. Now, everybody is normally familiar with the 6. Not to be confused with the 7. Only if you're watching The Boys. Anyway, so the 6. Circulatory, nervous, respiratory, digestive, skeletal, muscular. But the 6 aren't the only ones. Actually, we got the big 12. Right. So, you got your digestive, you got your muscular, you have your skeletal. But then, you have integumentary, skin. You have reproduction, male and female. Lymphatic, that's when you start getting to your hormones. Yep. We already talked about your respiratory, but you got to get rid of the waste. Urinary system, all right? Also known as excretory system. Then you have your endocrine system, nervous, and then your circulatory. Now, here's the thing. All these systems do something for the body to help it stay alive. So, bring you full circle. Here is your blue whale with all of its systems, or at least majority of them. Here are 7 criteria of life. Think about it. Organization. Oh yeah, this is definitely organized because remember, all cells are composed of what? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, plus some other things because all cells have those 4 biological molecules, those macromolecules, right? But even this is organized. I mean, if you think about it, the digestive system is here. You know, if you look at the way that you have your brain, spinal cord going on, so there's some organization there. Growth and development. Blue whales just don't start out this size. They have to grow into this size. How do they grow into that size? By producing cells, by those cells being differentiated to be like, oh, you're going to be a skin cell, you're going to be a blood cell, you're going to be a heart muscle cell, okay? Energy. Blue whales, where they eat krill. Does krill exist inside the blue whale? Nope. Does it have to get energy from the outside? Yep. Respond to the environment. If you notice, whales move around. Part of the reason that they move around is because you have a current. What does the current do? The current takes the food from place to place. How do they respond to that? They go from place to place. Regulation. All organisms have to regulate. One way that blue whales regulate is they take in oxygen, they release carbon dioxide. Yes. Reproduction. Well, you don't have to reproduce to have the potential to reproduce. Blue whales, regardless if they have calves or not, have the potential to reproduce. And then adaptation. If you've ever looked at any environmental books not environmental books, but evolutionary books, you know, they talk about the blue whales and how they were huge and how they were real big, and then some say, oh, they have a pelvic bone, which means they have like little legs. Well, long story short, these guys have adapted over time, just like we have, okay? And so what you find is just like the cell had all of these characteristics of life, so does our blue whale. I hope that this has been very instructive. I hope that you come back again. And most importantly, I hope that you continue to do science. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.